Good evening, my name is Kacper Paradowski and you are watching Poland Daily News. It was a busy day for the presidential candidates. New tensions rose between Andrzej Duda and Rafał Trzaskowski. The staff of the incumbent president sued the Civic Coalition's candidate for his speech at an election rally in Wrocław 5 days ago, during which Trzaskowski stated that over 1 million Poles lost their jobs in recent days. The elections are due to take place in 9 days.
Krzysztof Sobolewski, the proxy of the election staff of Andrzej Duda, filed an electoral lawsuit against Rafał Trzaskowski today regarding the alleged lie the candidate of the Civic Coalition supposedly told during one of the election rallies. We demand the following rectification. I, Rafał Trzaskowski, hereby declare that on June 14, 2020, during an election rally at the square in Wrocław, spread false information about the supposed million of Poles losing their jobs. Trzaskowski himself believes the lawsuit to be absurd. There is absolute chaos among the ruling camp. They themselves do not know what lawsuit they want to file. We know exactly what we are accusing the public television of. The last days of the campaign mainly revolve around the candidates meeting with the voters in different regions of the country, but also behind-the-scene meetings between politicians. Today, the Speaker of the Senate, Tomasz Grodzki, said that both the Civic Coalition and the staff of the incumbent President Duda are conducting talks with the Confederation Party about a possible transfer of votes in the second round of the elections. Meanwhile, the staff of Szymon Hołownia, an independent candidate, proposed a civic debate with Andrzej Duda, given the fact they will be meeting with their supporters in Białystok, very close to each other and at a similar time. This morning I sent a request to Joachim Brudziński, Andrzej Duda's chief of staff, for us to meet at a civic debate. Since we are going to be only 300 meters apart from each other, Mr. President should not hide in fear. Robert Biedroń, the candidate of the left, in turn presented a project for the bill on marriage equality and same-sex marriages. This here is a bill on marriage equality. It is a historic bill, never before proposed in the history of Polish parliamentarianism. The staff of President Duda announced today his new election slogan, "The President for Polish Matters." The head of state running for re-election met with voters in Pinczów and Jędrzejów in the Świętokrzyskie province. In Jędrzejów, Duda stressed that the rules of the United Right are the guarantee of Polish sovereignty. We are no longer in the Russian zone of influence. It changed in the last 5 years. Today we are truly becoming independent from Russia. We will soon be able to cut ourselves off of them completely when we finish the construction of the Baltic pipeline. Then we will be able to choose from whom we are purchasing gas. In the latest survey published in today's issue of Super Express, Andrzej Duda receives 40% of support, followed by Trzaskowski with 30% and Szymon Hołownia with almost 12%. Krzysztof Bosak is estimated to end up with 6%, similar to Kosiniak-Kamysz, and Robert Biedroń is closing the list with 3%. Other candidates would end up below this result. There are only 9 days left until the presidential elections in Poland.
352 new cases of coronavirus infections and 18 more COVID-19 deaths were confirmed in the last 24 hours by the Polish Ministry of Health. Fortunately, according to the government representatives' assurances, the epidemiological situation in Silesia, where the largest outbreaks of coronavirus in the country were located in recent weeks, has been contained.
Today we can say that Silesia is the safest place in Poland in terms of coronavirus infection, because the number of tests carried out in Silesia was the highest. No inhabitants of any region of Poland were examined as comprehensively as the inhabitants of Silesia. Today there is no reason to believe that the inhabitants of Silesia pose a danger to anyone in any way. If we did not look at the screenings, which we actively conduct a little bit more than the World Health Organization recommends, we would have 50 new infections in Silesia. This means that in Silesia there are less infections than in Mazovia, than in Łódzkie district. In terms of the number of infections, Silesia currently does not differ in any way from other areas outside these large outbreaks, and the large outbreaks have been effectively managed and contained. As you can see now, there are 40 PAR positive results from the mine, and this is a very significant decrease.
O tyle opanować, że jak widzicie Państwo już 40 parę dodatnich wyników.
Mike Pompeo, U.S. Secretary of State, called the former National Security Advisor to the President, John Bolton, a traitor. Bolton is to publish a book on what happens in the back rooms of the White House next week. The President himself stated that his former advisor's book is a compilation of lies and imaginary stories.
Mike Pompeo described John Bolton's latest book as a series of lies, half-truths, and blatant falsehood. In his opinion, the attitude of Donald Trump's former security advisor is a threat to the functioning of the American administration. Pompeo assured that America under Donald Trump's leadership is a force of good in the world. Bolton's publication is titled The Room Where It Happened, a White House memoir. It tells the story of the 17 months Bolton's work as a diplomat under Donald Trump. Although the book is to be released next Tuesday, fragments of it have already been published by the American media. For instance, some fragments imply that every decision made by the current US president was dictated by an electoral calculation. The published excerpts paint an unflattering picture of Donald Trump, making him out to be a stunningly uninformed person.
You described the president as erratic, foolish, behaved irrationally, bizarrely. You can't leave him alone for a minute. He saw conspiracies behind rocks and was stunningly uninformed. He couldn't tell the difference between his personal interests and the country's interests.
I don't think he's fit for office. I don't think he has the competence to carry out the job. There really isn't any guiding principle that I was able to discern other than what's good for Donald Trump's reelection.
You say that you were astonished by what you saw. A president for whom getting reelected was the only thing that mattered, even if it meant endangering or weakening the nation?
Well, I think he was so focused on the reelection that longer-term considerations fell by the wayside. So if he thought he could get a photo opportunity with Kim Jong-un at the demilitarized zone in Korea, there was considerable emphasis on the photo opportunity and the press reaction to it, and little or no focus on what such meetings did for the bargaining position of the United States.
Donald Trump rejected these accusations, claiming that there are many stories in the book that did not actually take place. John Bolton is one of the most important witnesses in the so-called Ukrainian scandal concerning the alleged pressure from Trump on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to launch an investigation into the son of Joe Biden, who Trump is set to face in the upcoming presidential election. Bolton left Trump's administration in September of 2019. In January, he refused to testify before the US Congress in the impeachment trial of Donald Trump, which ultimately ended with the US president being cleared of all charges.
Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro said on Monday that the country's military would not obey any order to remove an elected president, deepening a war of words with the judicial branch that has led to fears of threats to democracy in the country. Bolsonaro's comments, released last Friday and co-signed by Vice President Hamilton Mourão and Defense Minister Fernando Azevedo, also echoed a similar statement.
Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has stated that the country's military would not obey any order to remove an elected president, deepening a war of words with the judicial branch led by the Supreme Court. Legal analysts are worried by the actions of the Supreme Court, which is deemed to be acting in ultra vires, meaning outside the scope of its mandate. Our armed forces, and I am also of the military, we are truly responsible for democracy in our country. We will never follow absurd orders. We will also never accept a political judgment to ruin a democratically elected president. Bolsonaro's comments echoed a similar statement released on June 12 and co-signed by Vice President Hamilton Mourão and Defense Minister Fernando Azevedo that could foreshadow a looming constitutional battle between President Bolsonaro and Brazil's Supreme Court. The court is overseeing a probe into whether Bolsonaro illegally interfered in federal police appointments and another investigation into an alleged pro-Bolsonaro disinformation campaign on social media. The Supreme Court has ordered police raids against dozens of journalists, comedians and YouTubers critical of the Supreme Court and the Brazilian deep state. Another brutal interference of the Supreme Court in the executive. We cannot agree with that. I think that up to a point I have been patient and more than accommodating. I don't want to put my fist on the table, nor confront anyone. The people are always asking to not take on the executive power. We don't measure up our strength with anyone. We want to manage and guide Brazil to a safe destination. Bolsonaro's opponents also tried to use the coronavirus pandemic against him, but his supporters say that China-friendly politicians, such as São Paulo Governor João Doria, are sabotaging the president. Our president isn't able to govern because a globalist Chinese government agenda is being imposed on our nation. Yes, the virus exists, but it's not killing like they are saying it is. It's absurd that you have to wear a mask out in the open air.
That's all for tonight. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for Poland Daily Business. Good night.